Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Purpose Tune podcast. The goal of this show is to create valuable content to broaden your knowledge, inspire you to act, and get you in the right mindset so you can apply it in your own life to drive impact, generate meaning, and achieve your purpose. Now, today's episode guest is Vanessa Landry. She is a sustainability advocate, former C-suite executive, and nonprofit specialist, and also the founder of Consciousness Footprint, where she helps passionate eco-advocates affect systematic change and scale their impact in the fight against climate change while designing a life they love in the process. Moreover, she combines over 10 years of experience in business strategy, team leadership, and behavior change with a passion for social impact and sustainability to help others set ambitious goals to affect real change and take empowered action to achieve them. Vanessa, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for spending your time today with us to talk a little bit about sustainability and affecting change, as well as how all of that ties into purpose.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, of course, aside from what I've read, could you tell us more about, your background and why you decided to, get involved in this work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been involved in social impact since I was 16 years old. It's always been at the core of what I do and why I do everything. And so it was no surprise that my career took me on the same trajectory. But I honestly, I've been on this path for so long that it's just ingrained in me. I started when I was 16. I was exposed to community involvement clubs and homelessness immersion programs where I spent the weekend in homeless shelters and got to interact firsthand with people who were down on their luck. I studied sociology in undergrad, and then I went on to do 2 master's degrees and bring all of that skill set into the nonprofit sector. So I've really been working in a multitude of different project areas, helping to make the world better. And so ultimately, that's what I like to say I do every single day. I've worked in medical research, I've worked in international development, politics, environmentalism, really with a view of helping amazing purpose-driven organizations scale their impact and make the world better. And recently, in the last couple years, I really determined that my core focus area and passion was for sustainability. So I kind of spent my 20s flaring and exploring and seeing all the different areas that I can make an impact. And in the last few years, as climate change has really come to a head, I've realized that this next stage of my life needs to be focused on ensuring that we protect the resources and nature and environment around us. So that's where Conscious Footprint has come from, where I have sort of pivoted to really focus on helping passionate eco advocates affect change and scale that impact together.
That's fabulous. Wow. Incredible background, education, experience, all of that. So in the space of behavior change, what's your take on that? For example, of course, with the whole climate change and sustainability, we're seeing our oceans on fire because companies are not being toughly regulated to ensure that they're in compliance, and our beautiful national parks are on fire. And so it's, how do you get people to change their mindset behaviors to pay attention to some of these global issues that we're facing on our planet?
It's a really great question and a really deep question. So, I'll try to scratch the surface here, but I was having this discussion with someone really recently, and they were saying, why do you think that people aren't changing? So I'll start there, because what I see quite often is that with these really difficult topics, it's easier for us to say, that's not my problem. Someone will solve it. And, I'm just going to ignore it because it's scary. And it
Mhm.
is really scary. And especially with the IPCC report coming out recently and showing how scary it's going to get, a lot of people are fearful. And a lot of people go into this place of, well, somebody else will do it, or it's the corporates that need to change the way that they act, or it's the governments that need to regulate. But at the end of the day, the world is just made up of human beings.
Mhm.
Corporations are run by human beings. Politicians are human beings. And so we have to tap into our power as individuals and human beings and actually look at, okay, what is within my control? And what's within my control is how I act as a consumer and what decisions I make and how I vote, right? What politicians am I putting in place to protect our planet? So I always say to people, don't underestimate your power as an individual because you have as much power as that politician. You've just chosen to use it differently.
Mhm.
So, what choices are within your control that you're going to make that are going to affect change? Is it eliminating plastic? Is it looking at your waste? Is it looking at your career and where you spend 40 plus hours a week and what you're dedicating your life to? We all have that choice and that power. It's just about how we choose to use it.
Right. Yeah, I believe in the power of choice. We all have the power to change uh, circumstances, and it's really harnessing our energy and attention to effect change. I have a minor in social justice, and so I understand the power of organizing and what social impact means and how we can get politicians to get on board on the issues that we care most about. So of course, this show is about purpose. How do you tie your work into purpose?
Well, I look at purpose as twofold for every single one of us.
Mhm.
Number one, it's around the impact we have and the legacy that we want to leave.
Mhm.
So, what is my individual impact that I want to have on this world?
Mhm.
And number two, it's also about living and designing a life that we love. Like, we all deserve as well to love what we do every day and to enjoy it and to have abundance. And often I find that there's this misconception of, oh, if you're a purpose driven leader, then you shouldn't be selfish and get the life that you want. And I call BS on that because we can do both and we can have anything we want. And it's all down to our mindset, our actions, our behaviors, and how we curate our life. So for me, it's about what do you want to leave in this world, but also what do you want to have in this world? Is
Mhm.
that family? Is that land? Is that travel? Like, what is it? They can coexist, but you have to do the work to determine what is your unique purpose because every single person's is different.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. Um, so could you speak to the power of dreaming big to effect change and how we can stretch our ways of thinking in order to achieve our dreams?
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of my favorite topics because I find so often people stop themselves before they start
Mm.
because we get into this mindset of, oh, what is possible? What do I think I can achieve? Or what do I think I can have? Instead of thinking about actually what we want.
Mm.
And it's when we want something, when we have that burning desire, that emotional drive, and just want it, that's when we make it happen. So if we always set our goals or our dreams, I use those two terms interchangeably, when we set our dreams at this space of like limitation and only what we think is possible, a lot of the time we're not actually going after what we want.
Mhm.
And, in my world, the people I work with, they want to be change makers.
Mhm.
They want to change the world. They want to stand up in a decade, hand to heart, and say, I helped fight climate change. And if they pull themselves back and say, oh, well, if I influence, a handful of people, that'll be good enough. Like, yes, they'll have influenced a handful of people, but they could have influenced a million.
Mhm.
And it's the millions we need to affect change and change the world.
Mhm.
So I work a lot with people to say, throw away the shoulds and the woulds and the what you think you can. What does your dream look like if you multiply it by 10,
Mhm.
100, 1,000? Do you want that? And if you want that, that's what we shoot for.
Mhm.
Because once you do that and you aim for that bigger goal, you reach the smaller goals faster. You
Mhm.
get them done, but then you affect even more change than you ever thought was possible.
Wow, that's pretty incredible to hear how that process could really, um, get people to expand their minds and really take action. Um, so how do you, of course, all of this requires a lot of time and focus. How do you get people to focus on an issue of that scale? Like, do you have any certain habits that you could share with us, to get people to get people to be inspired through
Yeah,
focus?
absolutely. So that's a great question as well. And I think the ultimate thing is when we go back to this idea of our dreams or our goals and it being a burning desire, it has to be something we really want. Because if we don't really want it, we're not going to be motivated by it or inspired by it.
Mhm.
So you have to firstly identify what it is that you really want. And then once you have that, it's about connecting to it every single day.
Mhm.
So I make sure every single morning I have a morning ritual built into my day, and I encourage each of my clients to design a morning ritual for themselves that works for them. And everyone's will look slightly different. But at the core of it is that you have to connect emotionally to the goal that you're working towards and what you want to achieve.
Mhm.
And the key is not just to say, I'm working towards climate, fixing climate change. It's actually, what is the unique problem that I am put here to solve?
Mhm.
What is it going to feel like when I achieve that? I work with certain people who want to eliminate plastic toxins from the ocean. So they have a very clear agenda. So every day they connect to the feeling and the pride and the joy that they will be able to experience when they've saved a marine life, when
Mhm.
they've protected the ocean for their children, when they're going for a swim without worrying about their health.
Mhm.
So it's about making sure that you're really clear and you're specific on what your unique purpose is, and then connecting to that every day so that when you're making decisions about whether to take a nap or do a podcast interview, you're like, the podcast interview is going to get me to my goal. So it
Mhm.
helps you in your decision making, it helps you in your focus and your time management in everything if you just take that little time in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, for some people, it's like focus, of course, is it could be a challenge because they're distracted by and bombarded by just so many things in their life, either in social media or you know, kids at home. And so it's really about how do you create an environment where you're disciplined enough to get the things that you need done, the things that are big that are going to move the needle forward to achieve your goals, right?
Absolutely. And a big part of that as well is community and who you surround yourself with.
Mhm.
So if you have a family and a support system and a friendship network that believe that you are capable of achieving this goal and want you to succeed, they're also going to help you to create that space so that you're not distracted or you're not easily giving up on yourself. Because, if you're like, oh, I was supposed to do this, but I just want to watch Netflix for 5 hours, they're probably going to tell you, no, don't do it. You want to do this other thing. And so your community is such a powerful piece of this as well.
Mhm. I often think about my mom as well as the people that have helped me succeed along the way. And those are my motivators, my motivating factors, because they've made such a immense impact in my life. And it's nice to be reminded about the people who at one point in your life have made an impact in order to continue the process, especially when things don't go the way that you plan. Speaking of which, how do you handle failure when you're trying to build a movement or get people to change their behaviors on a big scale and it's just not working, and you're finding yourself in this, consistently in this hole where it's like, I'm not progressing? How do you move forward?
That's a great question. But it's not one that I feel I can answer fully because I try not to allow myself to ever feel that I'm not making progress.
Mm,
So I'm a huge advocate of mindset work. And I believe that if we allow ourselves to think that way, then we will stop making progress. And so for me, even typical failure, it's just data. It's information telling you, okay, people aren't resonating with your message in this way. We have to try something different. And so as long as you're constantly making incremental progress, you're still making progress.
mm,
And I take your question though to mean like when it gets frustrating and when you're down and you just feel like people aren't coming along for the ride. And yes, I have been there.
mhm,
For me, I'm always reminded of a very powerful quote that I read once. And it's about, if you want to affect real change, you have to meet people where they are,
mm,
not where you are.
mm,
So whenever that happens, I take a step back and I say, did I meet them where they were, or was I going where I am? And more often than not, I was the person that wasn't affecting change in the way that I needed to. And so I take that as feedback on how I can do it differently and how I can then tweak my message or inspire different people, because maybe they're not my people.
mhm.
And that's the thing about change, is it's hard. It is hard work. And you have to find the people that are willing to do it with you.
Right.
So eventually, I hope that the entire world will wake up and be these change makers and advocates. And I do believe that that will happen. I believe that we will solve this process, or I wouldn't be doing what I do.
Mhm,
But right now, I need to find my allies. So
mhm.
that's what I focus on to keep me going.
Right. So on the opposite of this discussion, when did you consider yourself as a success?
I love this question. So I see success as an ongoing thing, right? And there's no just one time that I thought that I was successful. Ultimately, any time that I've chased after a dream, I've been successful. So I'm someone who sets a goal and then I achieve it. And every single time I've done that, I've looked at myself as a success with regards to that,
Mm,
right? Because it's all the little things, all the goals, they're all possible. You just have to believe in yourself and then make the decision that you're going to do it, right? So for me, there's been multiple examples of that. Like any time that I've chosen to move across the world, I've
mm,
just done it. I picked up and I moved to Australia. I moved to the UK. I moved to Canada with no plans, no jobs, but it was successful because I wanted to do it.
mm,
I went and I did my first master's. I did an MBA. Then I did a second master's. I did my master's in marketing. I shifted my career from working in client side, like working in nonprofits, to then consulting to nonprofits. That was a success in itself because it expanded my knowledge and my skill set. And then I left it all behind to start my own business. And my business is in its beginning stages, but even just that act of switching was a success, right? So every layer I go to is a new success. So I
Mhm.
choose to look at it like that. So
Mhm.
for me, it's like, when wasn't I a success? Because I've done so much. And I
Mhm.
think we can all, learn so much from having that type of attitude and reminding ourselves of what we have achieved in our lives rather than like, was there a definitive moment?
Yeah, I think your transitions from, one area of your career to another is really an indication of adaptability and resilience. And you look at how humans have progress, it is through adaptation and resilience that has made us who we are. And even though, of course, of course, every person has their own definition of what success means. And I think at the end of the day, as long as we're progressing and evolving as human beings, that gives
Mm-hmm.
us a purpose to continue to wake up every day and to develop our skills and to continue marching. Without those elements of purpose and meaning, I think we would simply be like zombies, just basically living without a purpose and meaning. And so I'm so glad that you're able to transition from one job to another and now running your own show. And similar to my situation, I never really considered myself as a podcaster. And I initially had a conversation with a friend who was going through some tough challenges in his personal life and lacking meaning and purpose. And I was like, I want to do something to give back to the world. And if podcasting is a way to give to the world, let's do that. And so I had to, do through trial and error, I had to figure things out on my own. And now people are reaching out to me and say, "Hey, Kong, I want to meet with you. How I want to know how you launched your own podcast. What are the steps and how did you get to where you are?" And it's been an incredible journey having to not only help people to start their own podcasts, but also engage with podcasters and have this platform where people can really talk about the things that really matter in life. And
Yeah.
so,
It's
uh,
powerful. And I love your platform, and the diversity of topics that you bring to the table is just amazing. Purpose is everything, and we all have it. We just got to find it.
exactly. I mean, I do my best to invite people from all walks of life to contribute to this notion of purpose, so
Mm,
that we can have an understanding of what purpose is for my listeners. Not one person has a true meaning of purpose. I think it shows up in different ways for every one of us, and we have to find ways to celebrate those things that lead us to a purposeful life. And so if you're a musician, and you think purpose is about making an impact in future generations, so they become top-notch singers or pianists or whatnot, and that's your purpose, then that's great. Do it, as long as it brings you joy and happiness, then more power to you. And we need more people on board tapping into this space of love and joy and positivity, when there's so
absolutely.
much going on in this world right now with the whole pandemic, and people losing jobs, and losing homes, and fighting through COVID. And it's just a scary thing. And so if I could do my part to put a dent into this world and shine a little bit of light, to get people to be inspired, then I'll do that. There was a quote, I can't remember who said it, but it was, we should be ashamed to die if we have not contributed to humanity. And
Mm,
that is such a powerful quote to me, because it's true. I mean, we were born on earth, you know, um, created by our creator to do good in this world. And we have to contribute, use our talents and abilities and knowledge to really make a positive impact in the lives of people. And whether that is through, volunteering at your church or volunteering at your community, or, making a donation to a nonprofit organization, like all of that is important to advancing humanity. And so I'm so happy that, I'm here sitting with someone who is in this space and trying to do good in this world, which is what we need more of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So how would you describe your success habits? Like if you had to highlight 3 or 4 habits that have made you successful, like what are they and how do you apply them in your daily activities?
Yeah, I mean, well, we talked about one already, which is really that morning ritual.
Mhm.
For me, that's everything. And on the days where I oversleep and I don't complete my morning ritual, I'm just not successful. I don't achieve what I set out to achieve on that day. And for me, my morning ritual is it's 2 hours to myself in the morning
Mhm.
before I go to work, before even my partner wakes up, where I meditate, I visualize, I connect with my goals, I study. I do mindset study in the mornings to get to know myself and my own, mindset blockers and habits and triggers and what I need to do differently to make the day a success. So that for me is just the number one thing that anyone can integrate into their life and see a dramatic result. So I know we talked about that one a bit already. The other things that I do, which I really attribute a lot of success to, is I'm a huge fan of time blocking.
Mhm.
So if you are someone who is trying to achieve a goal, whether it's a business goal or a life goal, actually setting aside specific blocks of time to work towards those goals and achieve your success, and knowing what you're going to do in advance, it's everything. And you can't negotiate with yourself when you time block. You put in a block of time and you determine what you're going to be doing at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. And when 2 o'clock on a Tuesday rolls around, that is what you do. You do not negotiate with yourself. You complete the task and you make sure that you have a time every single week where you're setting up your next week for success and thinking strategically about what you need to achieve and how you're going to get it done. So that's probably sort of my second success habit that I would attribute. And the third one, I spoke a little bit about already as well, which is, surround yourself with people who inspire you.
Mhm.
And this one I can't underestimate or under articulate, but when you are surrounded by people who have achieved what you've achieved, who have what you want, who know that it's possible, they are the people cheerleading for you when you start to doubt yourself.
Mhm.
So, whether that is a supportive partner, supportive community, or not, hire people to do that for you.
Mhm.
I've hired 2 coaches. I work with 2 coaches myself, a business coach and a mindset coach, and they are in my corner every single day. So, when I doubt that I can do something or I hit a roadblock, they're telling me to keep going. They're showing me the path. So I can't underestimate like really curating your surroundings and who you have in your ecosystem as one of the biggest keys to your success.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to tap into the space of coaching, not the fact that um, well, I've in my professional world, I coach business leaders on driving business strategy and how to lead effective teams. Um, but even the most successful business leaders need coaches too, coaches that can really provide insight about their blind spots. Everyone has blind spots. And so, of course, it's important to seek for feedback, in a way that's constructive and and that develops the individual to become a better person in their arena. And so, of course, depending on who you go to, it can be expensive. But for those people who, let's say, are thinking about getting, a coach, like, do you have any resources that they can tap into, like where they can start? Or is it simply as a simple matter as just Googling about,
Well,
yeah.
it depends on exactly what you're looking for. So I'm a huge advocate for coaching. I am a coach myself. My
Mhm.
coaches have coaches. And you said yourself, like some of the most successful people in the world, when you look at them and you ask them about their success habits, they say it's having a coach, it's having a mentor to push them further. So it is something, now that I've discovered it, I will never go through my life without a coach. I know that wholeheartedly.
Mhm.
But again, it's what do you need? Because every single one of us is different. There are life coaches out there who can help you determine what the purpose is that you want to have. There
Mhm.
are success coaches out there, which is what I classify myself as, which is if you know what your purpose is and what you want to achieve, we help you design a pathway to achieve that and then help you do that. There are
Mhm.
business coaches if you're specifically doing business. There's mindset coaches. So say you've hired a business coach, but you've realized like the tactics, but something's holding you back.
Mhm.
Money mindset coaches, there's everything. So
Right.
first step I would say is really determine, do you know what your goal is
Mhm.
and what is the gap that has stopped you from getting there? And you will be able to find a coach that specifically suits those needs. And then it's just about, going out and finding the right person for you, because we all resonate with different people and you have to resonate with your coach. It's a very intimate relationship. You need to know them, trust them, like them, feel that connection, and know that they're going to run towards your dreams with you and be there when you fall down.
Mhm. Yeah, that is a very good point, is the intimacy and connection, because without that chemistry, it would be very hard to be on board with someone who doesn't really understand you, without those solid foundations. I, through this podcast, have met a lot of coaches. Some of them are coaches themselves, and it's, for me, my challenge is okay. I have options. Who do I pick? And
Yeah.
so, if you have to, I think you kind of touched on this, but just top of your mind, if you had to highlight three characteristics of an amazing coach, what would those be?
Three characteristics.
Yeah, and
Um,
I want you to reflect on like some of the people that have made a traumatic, an immense impact in your life. What do they have that differentiates them from other coaches?
yeah. So the first one is, are they personable? So
Mhm.
is this someone that you would want to sit around a fire with a glass of wine
Mhm.
and chat with, right? Because if they're not, it's unlikely that you're going to feel comfortable sharing like your biggest fears. And when we are hiring a coach, it's because we want to overcome those gaps that we have, right? So I'd be looking for someone that is very personable, that you get along with on a personal level as well as a professional level. Expertise would be the second thing. So, have they done and achieved what you're hoping to do? Do they have the expertise in the area that you're looking to go into? There are so many different coaches who have achieved so many different things that you probably want to look for someone who has done what you are looking to do. And
Mhm.
they don't need to be miles ahead of you. You
Mhm.
don't need to hire the $100,000 coach. Find someone who's in a closer price bracket to what you need, who's, a few steps ahead of you. Then
Mhm.
you learn from them. And then you can hire a new coach if you need to move on from that.
Mhm.
And the last thing, which is a very personal one for me, is I look for someone with a very strategic mind, a very intellectual mind rather than tactics. You can learn all the tactics out there, usually for free. So you can learn how to build sales funnels. You can learn how to do an Instagram strategy. You can learn how to do content. out there in the world. But it's the people with the strategic mind who can help you to understand why you need to learn certain tactics and whether you need them to achieve your specific goals. Those are the best coaches, because they're not just there to take your money and teach you a skill and walk away. They're actually there to say, do you need this specific skill? And they help you to question and to grow. And the best coaches are the ones that are actually going to help you grow as an individual, so that eventually you don't need them. Like, good coaches work ourselves out of a job eventually. I hate to say that, but that's the goal. Like, I want all of my clients to have smashing success and to not need me in a few years. That's the goal.
Right. Well, and then of course that also builds your reputation of an effective coach, which then you will get more business, because people can refer you to their friends and family. And so it just reminds me of this dating app, Hinge. It was a Hinge that says it's created to be deleted or something.
Oh, I love that. That is great marketing right there.
And so it's like, oh, okay, well, gee, I wonder about how I can apply that concept to other areas of my life. But so you mentioned about studying earlier. What are some of the books that you could recommend for folks in the space of personal development, personal growth, or professional development?
Yeah, absolutely. So the number one book that I always talk about, and I've been talking about a lot lately, is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And that is a book that if you haven't read, you must absolutely get your hands on it and read it. It is a life-changing book, but it is one that you will read time and time again, and you will reread it, and you will take different things from it. For those of you that don't know it, it was written in 1937 by a man who studied 500 of the most successful men at the time. And really brought together what were their success habits and what were the key differentiating factors that helped them to achieve monetary success. Now, the edited versions include females who've been interviewed, but it also helps you to look at it from an abundant life perspective. So it's not necessarily just about monetary wealth, but also about abundance in your day-to-day life. That book will change your mindset. And ultimately, we've talked about this several times, your mindset is everything. It is the key to everything. So if there's one book I would recommend, it would be that one.
Yeah, that's a great book. I've read it a number of times, and I still do, just to keep myself fresh, because there's so much information that we can store in our brains. And so it's important to, take a refresher and just say, oh yeah, let's skip to this chapter. I want to read this chapter. I've been there, but I just need a refresher. So thanks for sharing that. Definitely, I would second that as well. What inspires you to do this type of work of sustainability, advocacy, making an impact in people's lives?
It's such an interesting question, because it's just so innately in me that I don't know anything else. So if you're familiar with MBTI profiling, Myers-Briggs personality assessment, there's one personality type, which is an INFJ, which is the rarest type. We're 1% of the population. That's my personality type. And it is individuals who are just, they make their decisions because it just is. Like, that's just what we're meant to do. And interestingly, I was looking up some famous INFJs before this interview, and it's Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King Jr. We have a lot of really famous change makers who fit into this personality type. And, when you ask them, why are they inspired to do their work? It's just because it's meant to be done. Like, we need to do it. And that's exactly how I feel. So I can't put my finger on it anywhere in particular. It's just, we're facing a climate crisis and somebody's got to do the work.
Mhm.
So let's just do it. Let's just do it.
Yeah, that's incredible. I think everybody has a passion, and they should leverage their abilities, intellectually, physically, to really um, make an impact in the world, to do good in the world. And I think that speaks directly to what this show is really about, is, how can I leverage my light inside me to make an impact, knowing that my time here on earth is short. And sometimes we often, and I'm guilty of this too, live as if we have forever. And but I do keep a reminder, to wake up with gratitude, and also knowing that my time here is finite, and that I have to act with a sense of urgency to make the best impact that I know how, in this world. And so we're about that time. And I did two more questions. The next
Sure.
one here is, what advice would you give my listeners as it relates to purpose and meaning?
Trust yourself, believe in yourself.
Mm.
One of the absolute biggest things I see is people just not believing that they can make their dreams a reality, or that they can have the impact that we want. And so I just trust your gut. If you want it, you can make it happen. You are the only person that's going to determine whether you achieve those goals. So go out there and do it.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that insight. Um, I agree with you that sometimes our biggest challenge is ourselves, is that we block ourselves from doing the things that we need to do to get to where we need to be, and we talk ourselves out of it. Yeah, so that's
Yeah,
important. Self-belief is power, really.
absolutely.
Mhm. And then, if people wanted to connect with you through this podcast, where can they find your work? Where are your presence?
Yeah, the best place would be to go to scaleyouриmpact.ca, and that will take you through to my private community where I host weekly live trainings once a week on how you can step into your purpose and scale your impact. And I also do periodic workshops, 5-day workshops that you can get involved in. And we have the next one coming up in about a month, called From Passion to Purpose. So, really looking at how you can harness your passions and translate that into your purpose. So, that was scaleyourimpact.ca.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Well, folks, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, please feel free to subscribe and like, and also follow Vanessa. And I will see you next time. Thank you so much for listening.